Power is not about fairness. It is not about merit. It is not about truth. It is about illusion. And the man who understands this law commands the world without ever asking for permission. You may be more intelligent than your competitors, more disciplined than your rivals, more virtuous than those who rise before you. And yet they pass you by. They gain positions, they attract followers, while you remain invisible. Why? Because they understood something you ignored. People do not see the essence, they see the projection. They do not follow brilliance, they follow presence. They do not obey truth, they obey confidence. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago when he wrote that it is better for a prince to appear virtuous than to actually be virtuous, because appearance is immediate and unquestioned, while truth is hidden and ignored. Look around you today and the same law applies. The loud fool rises to leadership, while the silent genius is forgotten. The man who knows little but acts like he knows everything is followed, defended, and admired, while the one who knows everything but doubts himself is erased. And the world is cruel enough to repeat this every single day. Let me ask you directly, when you enter a room, what happens? Do people notice? Do they feel the weight of your presence? Or do they continue as if nothing changed? That reaction is not about your intelligence, your kindness, or your worth. It is about your projection. If your body language says weakness, if your posture says hesitation, if your eyes seek approval, then the verdict is already written. You are beneath them. No amount of hidden potential will change that. People are not digging into your soul. They are scanning your signals. They are wired like animals to detect dominance and submission. They respond not to truth, but to the cues of power. That is why the man who acts as if he is untouchable becomes untouchable. That is why the man who moves with the aura of inevitability is rarely challenged. It is not fair, it is not just, but it is the reality of human psychology. You do not become what is true, you become what you project. Confidence is not a trait, it is a weapon. It is the invisible sword that cuts deeper than logic, deeper than skill, deeper than intelligence itself. In the ruthless psychology of power, the man who carries himself with absolute certainty dominates the battlefield before the first move is even played. People do not wait to test his abilities. They surrender to the performance of strength. This is why the overconfident fool often outshines the cautious genius. The fool acts like a king, and so he is treated like one. The genius doubts himself, hesitates, explains, apologizes, and so the world treats him like a servant. Machiavelli understood this paradox. Society bends not to competence, but to conviction. And here is the terrifying truth. Once people accept your confidence, they will defend it, even when reality contradicts it. They will rewrite your failures as victories. They will excuse your mistakes as strategy. They will protect their belief in you because to admit they were deceived would shatter their own stability. Think about it. Haven't you seen men rise with nothing but ego? The man who enters every room like he owns it, who speaks without hesitation, who makes eye contact without fear. He gets the deal, the respect, the loyalty. Not because he deserves it, but because he broadcasts certainty, and certainty is magnetic. Confidence hypnotizes. It silences doubts. It forces others to submit, not because they are convinced by reason, but because their instincts are triggered by dominance cues they cannot ignore. And yet here lies the brutal mistake most men make. They wait. They wait until they feel ready, until they believe they've earned the right, until evidence proves they deserve to be confident. But power does not reward hesitation. The battlefield is not won by those who wait to be crowned. It is won by those who put the crown on their own head and dare the world to object. Understand this. Every second you hesitate, the world is not admiring your humility. It is smelling your weakness. It is circling like wolves sensing prey. Confidence is not optional. It is survival. Without it, you are devoured before you can even speak. Theater rules the world. You may think history is shaped by facts, by truth, by skill, but look closely. What people remember, what they follow, what they bow to, is image. Every powerful man crafts his myth. He edits what the world sees. He amplifies the traits that command respect and buries the ones that invite doubt. And over time, that theater, repeated with discipline, becomes indistinguishable from truth. Julius Caesar didn't just conquer Gaul, he appeared as if he was destined to conquer Rome. Napoleon wasn't towering in height, but he stood like a giant, and so the world saw a giant. Machiavelli himself, born without noble blood, wrote with the voice of authority, and so kings listened. Do you see the pattern? They did not wait for the world to notice them. They designed the image first, and the world adjusted to the illusion until the illusion hardened into reality. This is the cruel law. Perception repeated becomes fact. If you carry yourself like a leader long enough, people will insist you are one. They will rewrite your story to fit the myth you fed them. They will point to your confidence as proof of hidden mastery. And here is where most men fail. They cling to authenticity. They wait for someone to notice their goodness, their quiet nobility, their humble intentions. But the world does not care. The world is not searching for truth. It is searching for certainty. If you do not feed them an image, they will build one for you, and it will not serve you, it will serve them. That is why you must become ruthless in the theater of power. Every gesture, every word, every silence must be intentional. You do not give the world your full self, you give them the version that secures your position. The king never flinches, the general never hesitates, the politician never stops smiling. It is not deception, it is design. And design, backed by repetition, becomes destiny. The greatest trap of weak men is waiting for validation. They tell themselves, once I'm more experienced, once I've proven myself, once others recognize my worth, then I will act with confidence. But that moment never comes. Why? Because power does not wait. The battlefield of life does not reward the hesitant. It rewards those bold enough to assume authority before anyone offers it. When you hesitate, people do not think you are cautious. They think you are weak. When you defer to others, they do not admire your humility. They see submission. When you soften your words to avoid offense, they do not respect your courtesy. They sense prey. Every act of doubt, every apology for existing, every glance downward is a signal. And people are wired to respond to those signals. They see you as you show yourself. If your posture whispers, I am beneath you, the world believes it. If your silence says, I am afraid to offend, the world accepts it as fact. Your hesitation becomes your identity, and the world mirrors it back until you are trampled. Not because people are cruel, but because you handed them permission to do so. Now consider the opposite. There is a different kind of man, the one who assumes his place. He does not wait to be told he is dangerous. He believes it before anyone else does. He assumes his presence carries weight, so he walks into the room like gravity bends around him. He assumes his ideas matter, so he speaks with command instead of hesitation. He assumes respect is owed, so he never looks down or apologizes for his existence. And here is the terrifying part. People respond as if it is true. Because once again, the world does not investigate, it reflects. The man who carries himself as if he is inevitable becomes inevitable. The man who walks as if he owns the ground ends up owning it. Power does not recognize humility. Power recognizes assumption. And the man who dares to assume first, before proof, before validation, before permission, is the man the world begins to follow. Assumption is the hidden law of power, more subtle than skill, more decisive than luck, more absolute than intelligence. The world treats you exactly as you assume it should. If you assume you are beneath others, you carry yourself with hesitation. You look down, you speak softly, you move as if apologizing for existing, and the world mirrors that back. It overlooks you, dismisses you, places you beneath them, not because it is true, but because you projected it. You broadcast your own irrelevance, and society simply agrees. But when a man assumes the opposite, that he is the most dangerous force in the room, everything changes. His posture hardens, his voice deepens, his eyes stop searching for approval. He does not beg for respect, he expects it, and people treat him accordingly even before he has earned it, because assumption creates gravity. It pulls others into orbit. They see what you believe, not what you are. This is why weak men remain weak. They assume they will lose, so they play not to win, but to avoid failure. They assume their voice is unworthy, so they stay silent while mediocrity speaks louder and steals the crown. They assume they must wait, and so they are erased by those bold enough to step forward without proof. The man who assumes victory before the battle begins moves differently. He strikes without hesitation. He takes risks others avoid. He radiates inevitability. And slowly the world accepts his assumption as fact. This is not optimism, it is strategy. You do not need permission to act powerful. You act powerful, and permission follows you. You do not wait for people to recognize your worth. You behave as if it is already understood. Conviction is the foundation. Assumption is the crown. Together they transform a man from invisible to untouchable. This is why Machiavelli demanded that rulers craft their image, because once people repeat the illusion, it becomes reality, and reality obeys the man who dares to assume. Certainty is more powerful than truth. This is the ruthless foundation of power that most men never learn. The world does not investigate your essence. It responds to your branding. Reputation is not built on facts. It is built on repetition. It is carved not by reality, but by the story you insist upon again and again, until people can no longer separate the myth from the man. Think of every leader you admire. What do you truly know about them? Very little. What you admire is the illusion, the carefully engineered projection, the theater repeated so relentlessly that it hardened into fact. The general stands tall even when exhausted, and so his men believe he is unbreakable. The politician smiles even when cornered, and so the public believes he is in control. The king never flinches, and so his subjects believe he is divine. These are not accidents. They are rituals of dominance, performed until they become law. The tragedy of the ordinary man is this. He believes reality will eventually reveal his worth. He assumes that hard work, quiet genius, or hidden virtue will one day be discovered and rewarded. But the world is not looking for truth. It is searching for certainty. And if you do not project it, someone else will project it louder, and the herd will follow them instead. People are mentally lazy. They do not dig. They do not analyze. They do not verify. They assume. And once they accept an image, they cling to it because it stabilizes their world. This is why the confident fool rises, while the hesitant genius waits to be noticed. This is why mediocrity, when packaged with authority, outshines brilliance that hides in silence. Understand this. The illusion you create is not a mask. It is the architecture of your destiny. If you do not design it, it will be designed for you. And once another man defines who you are, you will never escape the story he writes. That is why Machiavelli demands you seize control of perception, because in the war for power, certainty repeated long enough does not just win followers, it rewrites history. Power is never given. It is never discovered. It is assumed. This is the final and most brutal truth of Machiavelli's psychology. Weak men wait for the crown to be handed to them, never realizing that crowns are seized, not offered. They live on standby, hoping that one day someone will recognize their goodness, their effort, their quiet brilliance. But history does not remember the patient. It remembers the bold. The man who steps into the arena as if he already owns it. The man who declares himself inevitable before the world even knows his name. That is the difference between the ruler and the ruled. One waits to be chosen, the other chooses himself. And the terrifying part is that once he does, the world adjusts. It accepts the illusion, repeats it, and soon the illusion is no longer a performance. It is law. Understand this. You are not fighting to become your best self. You are fighting to project the best version of yourself so relentlessly that it becomes reality. You don't ask for permission to be respected. You move as if respect is already owed. You don't shrink to avoid offense. You expand, you dominate space, you command with your presence. Every hesitation you kill, every ounce of doubt you bury, every act of certainty you project becomes a signal, and people, wired to follow dominance, will bend to it. Not because they know your story, but because they feel your conviction. That is power. That is the crown before the crown. And so I will ask you once and only once, who will you be when this ends? The man who waits, hopes, apologizes, or the man who assumes, projects, and rules? The answer is not a choice. The answer is your destiny. Act as if you are the best. Carry yourself as if no one is better. Because in the end, the world does not kneel to truth. It kneels to certainty. And certainty belongs to the man ruthless enough to claim it. Now you understand the law. The world will never hand you respect. It will never give you space. It will never validate you. Respect is taken. Space is claimed. Validation is irrelevant. Power belongs to the man who assumes it without hesitation and projects it without apology. From this moment on, you cannot walk the same way, you cannot speak the same way, you cannot think the same way. Every gesture, every word, every silence must broadcast certainty. Because if you fail to send the signal, someone else will, and they will rule over you. This is not philosophy. It is survival. This is not suggestion. It is command. Act as if you are the best, because no one will believe it until you do. Move like the crown is already yours, because the world kneels not to effort but to confidence. And if this message has cut through the fog, if you feel the shift inside you, then don't let it fade. Claim your place here, among those who see the game for what it is. Subscribe to the Cold Strategist. Leave your thoughts below, not as idle comments, but as declarations of who you choose to become. This is not entertainment, it is preparation. Every lesson here is a weapon, every word a tactic, every truth a step closer to dominance. The men who ignore it will remain pawns. The men who apply it will rise as kings. So I ask you again, the last time I will ever ask, who are you going to be when this ends? The man who waits for permission, or the man who assumes the throne? The decision is yours, and it begins now.